I love westerns, and I've been exposed to them for a while now. My grandpa was really into westerns, and I can't recall a day where we didn't have Bonanza, Gunsmoke, or a Clint Eastwood movie on somewhere in the house. So while he shared his love of westerns with me through film, I shared mine with him through video games. I have fond memories of sitting on the floor in their middle room, crisscross in front of a tiny yet somehow bulky CRT TV, playing a variety of games with him on the couch behind me watching. Now, he wasn't really interested in everything I played, but he always had to be there when I booted up any kind of western, so Gun was a popular one, or the topic of today's video, Red Dead Revolver. So please join me on this nostalgic but also realistic review of the game that kicked off the Red Dead franchise. Red Dead Revolver released for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox on May 4th, 2004. The story follows Red Harlow, a bounty hunter who's trying to seek revenge on the men who killed his parents. The first level in the game sort of acts like your tutorial and your childhood flashback. So when the first mission begins, you're just hanging out with your parents. Everything seems normal on the farm. You walk down to the stream and practice your aim on some pots and pans. After your mom yells at you though, gunshots are heard in the distance. The farm is under attack as you frantically are thrown into the action. You have to kill these foot soldiers on your way back to the house. Unfortunately, both of your parents have been killed, but Red sees an opportunity and takes it. He grabs this flaming hot gun and blows off the attacker's arm while burning his own hand badly. We then flash forward to adult Red, who has this same burnt hand wrapped up in some kind of cloth. I really like the symbolism here. Red is a guy who's determined to enact revenge on those who wronged him and his family. This burn is a constant reminder of what his goal is, what they've done to him, how he can't be bought off or persuaded otherwise. There are multiple times throughout the story where Red is offered money or threatened, or he's jailed even at one point, but he still sticks to the plan and sees it out. It's a straightforward revenge plot, and you'll see most of what happens coming, but there are some minor twists and turns that I won't spoil for you today. Now, even with this very serious plotline, Red Dead Revolver somehow finds a way to be a very goofy game. It's campy with the way characters deliver their lines, the way they move and attack, the sounds they make. There's a lot to talk about here. So the bosses in Red Dead Revolver especially are just weird. There's one where there's this fat guy with dynamite all over his body called Pig Josh. He'll squeal and charge at you, then when he gets close to you, he smacks the ground and blows himself up, hopefully to get you too, but all while these little clowns run around the map with revolvers and take shots at you. Professor Perry is another weird guy that drinks this mysterious green liquid to allow him to teleport around the map, all while again little clowns with revolvers take shots at you. Hell, remember the guy we disarmed in the beginning of the game? He decided that instead of a prosthetic arm, let's just mount a cannon on it. It's just ridiculous, and I love it. The game is so quotable too. My sister sends me random quotes from this game all the time just to mess with me. Here's a short montage of some of my favorites.
Ain't you seen a man in a barrel before?
TNT. Why couldn't it be bacon and beans?
Get away from me, you freak!
Whoa! Easy on them baked beans, Sheriff!
I realized I got a little ahead of myself, so let's go ahead and scale it back a bit and talk about the gameplay. So Red Dead Revolver is a third-person shooter, yeah, but it's a pretty damn good one, especially for how old it is. There's a pretty strong aim assist that makes gunplay more tolerable. Many times when I play these older games, the controls are just terrible. They'll feel loose or unresponsive, whatever it might be, but Red Dead Revolver on the Xbox did not feel this way at all. Sure, there were times where I overcorrected and missed the headshot. I'm not saying this game is up to modern standards, but it's certainly better than most of the early to mid 2000s console shooters that I've played. There is a cover mechanic in the game, but I didn't find it all that useful. You can only fire over certain specific pieces of cover, and on all other cover, you have to be right on the corner to fire around it. I found that just standing behind cover and strafing left and right was far more effective than using the system. You get a variety of different weapons to use: revolvers, rifles, throwables like fire bottles and dynamite sticks. It's pretty cool, and I like that we're able to upgrade the weapons as well. So Red Dead Revolver is a very linear game. When you load into a mission, you watch a cutscene, fight a bit, maybe watch another, then fight a boss, then end level. Most levels are over in about 10 to 15 minutes. After each level, you're given the opportunity to swap out your weapons, save, and repair your weapons. This is something that made its way to later games. The weapon will degrade if you do not repair it. Now, It's a very simple system in this game. The more you fire the weapon, the more degraded it'll be. So you lose both accuracy and damage output as it degrades. You pay the amount they ask and it's fixed. After each mission, you're paid for the bounty you killed, plus you're given a rating based on different criteria. The criteria includes your accuracy, how much damage you took, how long it took you to beat the level, and your best combo. The combo system in Red Dead Revolver is interesting, so depending on where you hit an opponent in the body, you'll earn more money for it. So chest is the lowest at $2, $4 for legs, $6 for arms, and $8 per headshot. To earn more money, you have to keep your combo going to build your multiplier up. This was a system I sort of just let play out. I wasn't actively going for headshots for the money, but more so just to drop my opponents quicker. Anyways, if you fulfill 2 of these requirements, you'll get a good rating. 3 or 4 will land you an excellent rating. This just determines what you unlock, so it could be a showdown character and a map, or maybe you'll get 2 showdown characters, or even a permanent health upgrade. Now, if you missed this, however, you don't have to necessarily replay the mission to get what you're after. So let me explain that. After certain missions, instead of loading into the next one immediately, you'll go into this hub world, the town of Brimstone. In Brimstone, you're able to buy weapons, upgrade existing weapons, buy health and Deadeye upgrades at the saloon, as well as purchase those missed unlocks that I mentioned before. Showdown characters and stages are typically expensive though, so I would recommend that you replay the missions, but if that's not something you're into, then you can buy them. It is an option. What I really loved about Brimstone is how the town evolved with the storyline. So you may have completed 2 or 3 missions in between visits to Brimstone, and so NPCs around town will talk about the events that occurred. They won't really recognize you when you first get there, but as you do more jobs for the sheriff, they praise you and talk about you more highly. It's a simple little detail. There isn't really much depth to it or anything, like you're unable to rob stores, for example, but you can for sure see how this laid the groundwork for the later games. Speaking of those sequels a little bit, dueling was first featured in Revolver, although it is a bit simpler than it is in the later games. So you'll have those grainy close-ups of the characters' faces, dramatic musical play, then when the combat window opens, the grain clears out. So what you have to do is, when that grain clears, you pull back on the right stick to grab your gun, and then you push up on the stick to lift it into position. You then roll the crosshair over your opponent, and you wait for the red icons to show up before selecting where you're gonna fire. I really liked this in Revolver. It made for some pretty intense gunfights. Sometimes you're up against 2 or 3 opponents, and since you have a 6-shooter, you have to sort of plan out your strikes accordingly. On top of this, some enemies will draw on you faster than others, and they can fire first too. Thankfully, you can end the slow-mo early, but this does open you up for damage if you didn't kill your opponent. You can see how this could get pretty intense, and I died a few times to my opponents before I got it right. It's like a game of chess the first time, figuring out where to fire and who to hit first and when to start firing. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but Deadeye is also in this game, and it functions essentially the same as it does in the Redemption games. You go into slow-mo, you're able to paint targets on your opponents, and then when you end the slow-mo, Red quickly fires on all those targets. Now here's where Deadeye gets interesting. There are more playable characters in the story than just Red. The Deadeye we know is Red's ability, but each character has their own unique skill. Jack Swift's, for example, automatically paints the targets and fires on them when triggered. Annie Stokes fires an explosive round out of a rifle. Shadow Wolf is able to use fire arrows. You get the idea. You can only play as these characters once in the campaign, but the fact that they're there at all is fantastic. It adds much needed variety to a game that I believe would otherwise be pretty dull without it. Now, I briefly mentioned Showdown earlier, and that's where I spent the majority of my time as a kid playing Red Dead Revolver. Showdown is the multiplayer component and is available on both the Xbox and the PS2. The mode supports up to 4 players locally for split-screen multiplayer chaos. For this video, I decided to play full-screen single-player with bots to give you a better view of the on-screen elements and power-ups. So once you've unlocked everything there is to unlock, there's a total of 48 different characters to choose from. Yeah, 48. Each character, like the single-player campaign characters, have their own version of Deadeye. There are some repeats, but most are original. That's insane to me. My favorites were Cooper, this dude who walks around in a barrel. He just digs up another barrel out of the ground and tosses it. It's absolutely useless. I just thought it was funny. Now, the clown Fidget, though, his ability is he throws dynamite sticks out that turns into cards that explode when someone tries to grab them. This made for super frantic fights, not knowing which card is real and which isn't. Each colored card in Showdown represents something different, so green replenishes health, yellow replenishes Deadeye, red gives your existing weapons power-ups, and blue gives you new weapons. On top of the strategy, you're trying to grab the cards to complete your hand. There are 2 different card modes. In stud mode, you just have to collect any old 5 cards and your bounty will be paid out to you, and you'll get some kind of upgrade. In Hold'em, you're given 2 very specific cards and you have to complete your hand according to poker rules to get different upgrades. I thought the game was a bit too chaotic for Hold'em rules, and we never played this way growing up. You're also able to turn off the cards if you'd rather play without them, but I found them to add a lot of excitement to the game. The cards are just downright broken. Many cards will give you explosive weapons that allow you to stun lock a single opponent until they're dead. Alternatively, you can get poison weapons that inflict damage over time, or fire weapons that light enemies on fire, etc. On top of this, after you complete your hand, you can get certain abilities such as the ability to light yourself on fire and take no damage, or maybe an ability that makes you invisible. You'll be using these powers across 3 different game modes and across 13 different maps. All of the maps from the campaign return for Showdown, and most of them are spaced out well enough for 4 players. There isn't much variety to the game modes, so 2 of the modes, Bounty Hunter and Sundown, are just deathmatch with different win conditions. In Bounty Hunter, you're trying to be the first to hit the score limit. In Sundown, you're trying to have the highest score after the time limit. High Noon is where it gets sort of interesting. It's the dueling mechanic from earlier, but you can play with 3 different opponents. Once you take out your first target, you then move on to the next until 1 man is left standing. Even with the lack of variety in game modes, we still had a lot of fun with this as kids. 48 different characters to mess around with added quite a bit of depth to an otherwise stale multiplayer mode. I know for sure that this would have been popular had it made its way to Xbox Live. Sure, there may not have been a ton of variety to the modes, but there's plenty of funny moments to be had with the broken card mechanic and the goofy roster of characters. So far, I've only really talked about Red Dead Revolver in a way that paints it as a great game, but I'd be lying to myself if I said that was true. Red Dead Revolver is good, yes. It's a solid foundation, but it has its problems. For starters, the game's performance isn't phenomenal. I understand that I played this via backwards compatibility on the 360, and I also understand that weird things can happen when doing this. However, from my memories of playing on the PS2, the game just does not run well. It will run wonderfully in closed-off areas such as hallways and rooms, but it runs like hot garbage in more open areas, especially around water. The Xbox version did surprise me though. This is the best I have ever seen this game look or sound. The soundtrack is excellent, and it supports surround sound right on the menu, no tweaks necessary. Now, I did have to tweak my video settings a bit on the 360. I had to lower my output resolution to 480p because there were some pretty gnarly visual bugs at 720 and 1080p. There's also a game-breaking bug on level 8 where if the boss gets too close to you, it locks your system up and requires a reset. Just be aware of that if you plan on playing the 360 like I did. Though the game is available on the newer Xboxes and the PS4 digitally if you'd rather go that route. Though I can't confirm if it's fixed or not in those versions. My other major complaint with Revolver is with the difficulty spike at the last mission. Now, I didn't die too much because I feel like I know this game pretty well, especially with its quirks, but for whatever reason, the final mission at the mansion always pushes my shit in. It doesn't matter how many times I replay this game, I always die at this final mission. There's a part where you have to protect Jack Swift for 3 minutes while he gets the front door open, and they just send out waves upon waves of enemies at you. Annie is supposed to be helping cover Jack, but she doesn't do shit. I mean, if you, Jack, or Annie die, it's game over and time to restart again. It is the longest 3 minutes of your life, guaranteed. Not only are they spamming soldiers at you, they're also sending these little mini bosses at you. They can't be harmed during their roll animations either, and they pack a punch with these revolvers. It's crazy. It's a massive sigh of relief once you get into the mansion, and then the rest of the game relaxes back into that previous difficulty. I'm not sure what it is about this one specific mission, but it'll take you for a ride. When I opened this video up, I talked about my history with westerns and how I'm nostalgic for Red Dead Revolver, and I still am nostalgic, but I didn't let it cloud my judgment of the game. So, is Revolver worth playing? Absolutely, I think it is. If you're a fan of arcade shooters, a fan of the Red Dead Redemption series, or just a fan of campy, weird games, I say try it out. It's cheap nowadays, 15 bucks on Xbox and PlayStation, and even less if you buy it on disc like I did. It's really short too. My playthrough took me about 5 hours to complete, but it's like playing any old game where you have to understand its little quirks and control scheme before you dive deep into it. Do I think Red Dead Revolver needs a remaster? No, I don't think so. Rockstar has done a good enough job of preserving the game on modern platforms, and it's referenced multiple times in Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. Red even appeared as a playable character in Red Dead Redemption's online component, even if they did butcher his voice.
Don't forget to tell the devil Red Harlow sent you.
While Red Dead Revolver might not be the flashiest or most technically advanced game in the trilogy, it for sure is the first one I played and the first one I would recommend. Do yourself a favor and give this one a shot. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. My grandpa passed away in 2012, and this game sort of takes me back to that space in the mid-2000s where we just hang out and watch shit together. It's funny how that works, isn't it? You know? Anyways, if you're interested in other nostalgic reviews, check out my Beautiful Joe video that I spent far too much time on, but I'm very proud of it. I highly recommend it. Or maybe you can give my Kill Switch video a watch if you're more into the technical side of things. It was the first major third-person cover shooter that felt great to play. Anyways, I've talked enough. Have a great day.